Coach, what up?
Hey guys, how are you?
We're doing well, man. How you doing? We're
Good.
not as hot as you, but we're doing well.
We're all good, man. We're just getting down there. We practiced middle of the day, so I was glad I was able to get down and come up for a little bit and spend some time with you guys. We're fortunate when people want to have anybody on our staff on. Certainly promote our program as best we can. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, I've known you a long time, man. Going back to the recruiting trail, and I can remember being in a hotel, hanging out in the national. I think it was before the national tournament. You were recruiting some of our guys when I was in junior college at Paris for Ross Hodge, and have done a tremendous job everywhere you've been. Let's talk about your head coach first before we talk about your team. Obviously, we mentioned that Virginia run. You guys have had some magic that you've built out there. Just talk about Coach Odom and just the job he's done and what you guys have built there.
Coach Odom is. I've been with him now. When I was out of the business there at Wyoming, came back to Charlotte. I was fortunate. Coach Alan Major was the head coach there, and Coach Odom worked for him, and a couple other good guys, Des Oliver, who's now at Tennessee, and Orlando Vandross, who's ironically at Virginia. I was fortunate to be able to come on staff there with those guys for 3 or 4 years, and it was good. But I left. Actually, Coach Price got the job when Coach Mage left. I stayed on with Coach Price, and then Coach Odom got the Lenore Ryan job. And it's actually in the league I played in at Gardner-Webb before finishing up at UNC Wilmington. And at Gardner-Webb, it was a Division II school at the time, and Lenore Ryan was in the league, so I was very familiar with it. My grandparents actually lived only a couple miles from the school, so very, very familiar with it. We were fortunate. We went there our first year. Longtime head coach, who's a phenomenal guy, John Lentz. Been there for a long time, and we'll go down in history as a great small college coach in North Carolina. And he retired, and then Coach came on. We won 21 games. They had won 10 the year before. Had some injuries, but we were fortunate. Guys got healthy. We came back. We had a good group coming back. We signed Division I transfer from Old Dominion. We signed a big foreign kid, about 6'8", 6'9", and then we signed a kid from junior college out in North Carolina. And we got lucky. God blessed us. We won 21 games, went to the Sweet 16. That year, Lincoln Memorial went to the national championship. They were in our league. Queens College in North Carolina was also in our league. I used to work at 3 years, in my first 3 or 4 years in college coaching. And Bart does a great job there. But we were lucky. We beat those guys. We beat Queens. We split with them. And then Lincoln Memorial, we actually went to a couple overtime games with them twice. One game was like 3 or 4 overtimes. Josh Church does a tremendous job. But we thought at that point, Coach, we got a pretty good team here, and so we actually ended up having a nice run. Lost to Lincoln Memorial in the Sweet 16 that year with the right to go to the Elite Eight. And Coach got this job. And then we've been fortunate. We've had some good runs here. We've won 21. 25, 21. Last year we had a plethora of injuries, won 16. And then we had our first 4 or 5 starters miss, like 4 starters missed the first 5 games last year. So it took us a little while to get going. We started off the league pretty rough. I think we were 0-4 to start, made a nice run. And, we lost in the semifinals at Vermont last year of the conference tournament. If we'd have won the game previous or the last game of the regular season, we would have been the 2nd seed, and we would have, it'd been a little different, but that's okay. It's how it falls. And, we're happy with it. This year, we're off to a pretty good start. We're 9-2. We've lost at Georgetown the first game of the year, and then we've lost 1 league game when they bombed 12 threes on us. So needless to say, if they hit 12 threes on you, it's hard to beat anybody. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you touched on a lot of good things here. I think the first one that really stands out to me, your stops with some of these, whether non-D1 teams or mid-major teams. I always like to ask coaches at this level, because I think that the mid-major level never gets the respect it deserves. Just what is it like coaching on that level of basketball? We just had a coach on from Clemson. What is it like coaching the mid-major level? You mentioned touching on getting players from the JUCO level, international transfers, all this types of stuff. Just what is it like coaching the mid-major level? And maybe what are some of the struggles that you have there that, maybe a team like in the ACC or Big Ten might not have?
Well, I tell you what, wherever we've been, I've been fortunate. This is going on year 23, and I've been lucky. I've actually worked for some really phenomenal people, and a lot of times it depends on who you work for. You just go work. You don't care if your budget's $1 or your budget's $100,000. You just go get it done. And I think that's really the unique part about non-division one. Brian's come through there through JUCO ranks too. To me, it's all the same. Anything that's non-division one, you really a lot of times are eating peanut butter and jelly, or sleeping in your car or sleeping on a buddy's bed. And I think that kind of it shows a lot of adversity. I think it's just the will to fight, whatever you've got to do to win. And what I mean by that is if you got to drive all night, to go. I know at Queens one time I actually drove down. We were playing Florida Southern. They were #1 in the country, and this was my third year in college, second year there. And I drove down to scout them because you can live scout. I drove from Charlotte, North Carolina to Lakeland, Florida. Actually, on the way, stopped in Florida because we recruited Florida pretty heavily. Watched the kid play, and then went and watched the game that night. Drove all the way back through the night. We had practice on Thanksgiving Day, and actually something got messed up with our meals, so the cafeteria lady let us in. And Bart and I literally, as practice was going on, we're going back and forth to check on Thanksgiving meal. We practice, we eat with the team, we get on the bus and go back to Lakeland on the team bus. Now, we drove the bus. Bart Lundy and myself, he's the head coach, and myself, we drove the buses. It was those little short buses. And B knows what I'm talking about too. Those little short buses. And we literally drove back down, and we beat them when Gordon Gibbons was the head coach, or #1 in the country. And I tell you what, those were the best times, honestly. And here it's nice because hey, you get to stay in a Marriott or a nice Hilton once in a while, and
Right.
But I tell you what, when you beat Virginia, I told my wife on the way home, it was unique. Like, it's kind of like you can decompress because, I was at Florida. I was blessed to be at Florida with Coach Donovan and those guys, Anthony, Donnie, Coach Chiat, Tommy Ostrom, who's at Indiana. And I left the year that Joe Kim, Torian, Al, Corey Brewer were all freshmen.
Yep.
Well, we had David Lee and those guys too. But, if anybody knows, year 2, they won it. Year 3, they won it.
They won it. Yep.
So, you know what? Maybe, God blessed me a little bit. I've had some runs in the Elite 8 and Division 2. I've been blessed. I've been in 2 Sweet 16s and Elite 8 in 5 years in Division 2. So that was nice. And then, obviously at Florida, winning the first SEC tournament in school history. And then, being able to come here. And we've had success along the way at other places. But I certainly can tell you the Virginia win, it's unfortunate this year that kids that are playing the NCAA tournament, part of the fun of the tournament is the other teams pulling for you when you're an underdog, or the game gets close and it's like, oh my gosh, let's, and that's the unfortunate part about this year is that's kind of the fun part. I mean, how about this? I grew up in North Carolina. Coach grew up in North Carolina and Virginia. We had 150 some family members between us at the game. Wow. I mean, it was people in my family that have never seen me live in a college basketball game got to come.
Wow.
And that was unique because at the end of the day, even though they're great friends of ours, the Tar Heels are in there, and I grew up a Tar Heel fan, and Tar Heel fans are pulling for us. And it's like, oh my gosh. So, that part was pretty unique.
Talk about real quick, Coach. I love that you're giving love to the small college people out here, because that's definitely the real grind, and it gives you a different appreciation. You got to have a different love and a different type of grit, and once you've invested that, it's hard to, when you get to that level, you still appreciate it, and you appreciate those bright light moments, but you always think back to where it started to get you there. So talk a little bit real quick before we talk about this year's team and how you guys are playing well and getting going in a great direction this year. Talk about just the Virginia win, right? What was it like? What was that game like? What was it like afterwards? Just take us through a little bit of that insight, if you don't mind.
Well, in all honesty, those guys are so good defensively. We were a little worried going in, because we play money games, and those guys are friends of ours. We've talked about playing in years past, and, it just never worked out with dates or whatnot. But when we drew them, it was like, oh boy. Now we're going to have to face this gauntlet. And, we were lucky. We watch a lot of games as a staff anyway. And we're good because we have some familiarity with the ACC. But to be honest with you, we played at SMU game 1, and then game 2 we played at Arizona, and that was Peyton DeAndre's freshman year, and both of those teams were in the top 25. Coach Jankovic had a great team. We actually took them to the last minute of the game. It was a close game. We played without little KJ Mauro as a starting point guard that year, without him in either one of those games. And then we played Arizona game 2, and it was tied with 12 minutes to go. And Jarris Lyles had a great game against those guys. But to get to the point is, we were like, hey, if you make the NCAA tournament, you're fortunate to win 3 games in March, and you make the NCAA tournament, you're going to get a low seed. You're going to play a high-seeded team. And, we don't care. We're going to go play who we play. And so that's the first year we've ever done that with our schedule, is play a high major team that's really talented early on. Usually you like to get a couple wins or feel like you got some competitive games before you go do that. We flipped the script that year and went 0-2. But we did prove that we could play. And then when we drew Virginia, I think our guys were just confident. Obviously, prepared a little bit because we'd already seen some teams that were top 25 early in the year. We had an older team that year, a team that really believed. We had a very good player in Jarris Lyles, and obviously some other good players. But we were fortunate. Then we go to Virginia anyway, or go to Charlotte. It's nice to go home, but obviously you don't see any family. You don't do anything. You're locked in. We did our report work. We actually went to Queens to practice, so it was nice to go back to my old stomping grounds a little bit and see my old boss who's back there now. And then we go to the game. Obviously, we're down in the first half. We go to halftime, and the game's right there. And I know coach is like, hey, guys, like 20 minutes, anything can happen. Just go for it, man. What do we got to lose? Let's have fun, go for it, have fun while you're playing. And that's a big thing with us, is have fun. If you're not having fun, the game's not fun, whether you're winning or losing. So it's big with us to let our kids, coach has a great knack for installing confidence in those guys. So long story short, the game gets, we come out, we're hot to start the game or start the second half. And, it's kind of funny. All of a sudden Virginia starts pressing, and it's ironic because that's just not what they do. And then you're like, wait a minute, are they pressing us because it's kind of set in, like, oh my gosh, we're ahead in this game, even though it's reality. You're so focused. You're not worried about the score. You're so focused within the realm of the game. And I remember with about a minute to go, a little less than a minute, coach leans over to me and he goes, hey, by the way, did you do anything on our next opponent, Kansas State and I said, yeah, coach, we're good. I said, so we're good. He goes, all right, appreciate it. Like, it was just, but it was meant for all of us sitting on the bench, but it was just kind of funny. Like, we prepared so much for the one game, but I think as a coach, when you've done it long enough, you know what, you better prepare for the second game and so forth, because things can happen if you believe it can happen. And if, it's obviously things have to align, but I tell you what, it was after that, we got back in the hotel really late. I know the team went on and actually coach was still doing press, and I stayed, and we rode back together and got back really late. It was well after midnight. And he debated, I'll tell you this, he debated about letting the guys, take their cell phones, because at that point, Twitter's blowing up, whatever. And we go back, and I mean, there's a line of people lined up with stuff to get signed. And we tried to explain to them how it was going to be the next morning. I mean, they walked out the elevator the next morning, and it was like a smack in the face of just a line of people in the hotel wanting, just to be able to say hello. I know KJ's parents were up in from Puerto Rico, and they called me from the mall in South Charlotte, and they were like, oh my gosh, they recognized us, and we've got to basically get in our car and ride back. We can't even go to the mall because people were trying to say hello to him. And his dad had the big fat head in the game. And, so those are things that those guys will never, ever, ever forget. And it was a neat experience. And it was hard for us to beat friends of ours and the guys at UVA, because they're such quality people. But for us to be able to go home, coach and myself, to be able to go home where we were at UNC Charlotte just a matter of years before, to be able to go back and win there, that was a little special in front of family. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really, really fun story there. Is there anything in particular that you noticed from maybe that stretch that you had, that March run, that you've been able to maybe implement into future seasons? And there might not be anything there, but I would imagine that was just such a surreal experience that there's something in particular that you might have taken away from that you've been able to implement in the years since.
Well, coach has done a good job. He said, look, I'm going to be honest. It seemed like it went on until the season started the next year. I mean, you literally could not go anywhere. It's funny. B doesn't know who this is, and maybe one day I'll tell him. But I walked into a junior college event to literally in early July, and I had a shirt on, and you just said UMBC. And I can tell you, early on when we first took the job, we'd go in and people that didn't know you, a parent might, you go in the bathroom, and I'm saying a parent, it could have been a coach or whatever. Hey man, what junior college is that? It's like, and so fast forward 2 years later, and I'm going into a junior college event, and a guy in the front desk is a young guy. He honestly, and I'm saying this humble, but he said, coach, Division II, Division III, what level are you guys? And I said, nah, we're Division I. And I'm just always been that way. I don't take offense to it. Doesn't matter. And the guy behind me is a good friend of mine who works in Conference USA, and he's been at the highest level. He's at Carolina. He's at Texas as assistant. And he goes, and he's, smacked me on the back. Hey man, congrats. I mean, he's a friend. He texts me when we'd won. And he's like, and he hears the kid say that. And the guy's like, and he goes, did you watch the NCAA tournament this year? You a basketball fan? And the guy's like, yeah. He goes, yeah, I coach. We'll get into that another time. But he's like, yeah, I coach. And he's like, no, I'm just starting my first year. And he goes, no, did you literally watch the NCAA tournament? Yeah, I watched it. And he goes, well, did anything great happen? And he goes, I don't know. Virginia lost. They were number one. He goes, well, the school that you're saying is Division II or III is read the shirt. So I was just like, come on, dude. I was like, yeah. But my point is coach has kind of tried to run with it, but he's also said you need to make your own story in year 2 or year 3 or whatever after that. I mean, and to be honest with you, it's great, but you don't live off of it. I will say this, we signed everyone early, that recruiting class. So we had 0 scholarships, and needless to say, nobody wanted to leave. So they had such good experience, which who didn't? They didn't want to leave. So we weren't able to, when we got the calls on certain transfers that we probably would have. But that's the way my boss is. He's loyal. He's not moving guys. We loaded up, and, we went on with the 4 new guys we had, and we had a good run that year. So, and that was a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, and one of those guys, if I'm not mistaken, that was on that team that is still on your roster, Brandon Horvath. Now one of your best players, if not your best player on this team. What have you seen out of him, and just kind of what are your takeaways from the team as a whole that you've seen so far this season?
Well, do you know how much Brandon played in the Virginia game? Either one of you?
Yeah, 0.
0, right?
Yeah.
So it's Brandon is a unique story, and there's been a few articles in the last week or so about him in some publications or papers. Brandon was such a Brandon was a guard, believe it or not, just grew late. He was like, he was 5'8", 5'10", sophomore in high school, and just grew. And he was only about 6'7" or 6'8" when we went up to see him in prep school. We'd seen him play in AAU and liked him, really thought he was good, but he's just so skinny and so thin. Long story short, he works really hard. He's a forward that can play in the post, but he has guard skills in short term, and that's really benefited him. I think at our level, a lot of times you don't get to have those kind of guys, and he's patient. He's a great kid from a great family, dad and mom. I mean, they're not tall people. His brother played Division III last year. He's now just going to school, but he was like 6'4". And so he's not from a tall family, just good people, worked hard. I mean, Brandon's top 2 or 3 in the league in scoring and rebounding. I mean, the dude weighed about 168 pounds when he got here. And people probably watch him now and say, oh my gosh, how skinny is he? But he's put a lot of weight on. He's done a lot of work. He loves the game. It's been good to see guys who don't play early in their career have great success as they stick out a 4-year period at a school. And that's been really, to be honest with you, the best part about his growth is because when you're recruiting kids and then they come in and they expect to play, everybody doesn't realize, you get to college, you were the number 1 guy in high school or junior college. You're not that when you get to college usually. And it's been nice to see his growth, maturity, and obviously success as well. So.
Yeah, and then with this team, you mentioned earlier in the show about health being a big issue last year. A really banged up team. Rodgers was out for quite a bit. Uh, with that in mind, what do you see in this year's team that is different or maybe improved, that's better than last year?
I tell you what, this team just the COVID really, has thrown everybody out of whack a little bit. But I think that just getting a chance to play, we went up to Vermont, lost in the semis, close game last year. We had beat them, split with them last year anyway. And, we felt like we could go up there and win. We've had some pretty good success against, to be honest with you, the team that's the gauntlet in our league. Didn't even realize it until, I don't even like saying this, but didn't realize it until somebody in our party saw it in the newspaper up there. We'd beat them 4 of the last 6 times before we lost to them last year. And people think they've run the league. Yeah, they have run the league. Hartford beat them once. Stony Brook beat them once. And then we've beat them they lost 6 games, 4 of them were to us. So how about that? They lost 6 games in our league while we've been in the league, and 4 of them were to us. And the other one was Stony Brook, and the other one was Hartford. And that's before this season started. But like most places, health has a lot to do with it. Our guys have been healthy. We do have Dan Ocken, who broke his nose a couple weeks ago. He's out with surgery. He's missed the last several games. He'll be back here soon. Brandon Horvath actually got a separated shoulder, or aggravated his shoulder. In the game we lost, he didn't play in league here last week. And then and Dan was out. He played, but he had a mask on. He broke his nose the day before, tried to play. He's our starting 5 man. So, you will have adversity. I know a lot of guys I've worked for, and I've really tried to take this, is that, you're going to have adversity during the year, whether it's with injuries, somebody's sick, somebody's feelings gets hurt because they're not playing. How do we all react? Something bad happens on a road trip where a flight gets canceled and now you got to bus up and you don't, something's going to happen. And it's really how well do you handle it? And I think our guys last year, they went through so much adversity. This year, it's like, hey, we're good. We got hurt. Everybody was down. We had a different lineup. So many games last year, it was unbelievable. I mean, we literally had 4 starters miss the first 5 games from the year before last year. But you know what? To our credit, our guys just rolled it up. We had some new guys come in, and I think that's helped our guys. I mean, we really got good depth right now. Now if we can stay healthy, knock on wood, and avoid COVID along with the injuries, we feel like we've got a chance to have a good year this year. So.
And speaking of that adjustments that you mentioned, obviously the league now going to this 2-game series schedule and also dealing with COVID. How has that kind of treated you guys? Do you enjoy playing this 2-game series? I imagine it's very different than what you're used to doing.
It's different. I didn't think I would like it personally. I know our staff, we all had different opinions on it, but to be honest with you, it's been kind of nice because you have 3 or 4 or 5 days to prepare before you go to the next opponent. And a lot of times you don't get that. We do scouting different. We break it down where all 3 guys help. One guy does personnel, one guy does all their sets and actions, and another guy helps with the offensive or their defensive schemes. And so it's nice because you really get time to dive in more than you do, normally. I can only imagine, if people in our league and they've got one of every 3 scouts, you're not doing 1 scout a month.
Right.
So it's kind of, we've always done it that way. So it's been kind of nice, but I actually enjoy it. Didn't think I would, but I kind of like it. I mean, obviously we've won some, so it's nice to say, but I guess if we've lost, I probably would have a different opinion, but it's hard to go on the road and beat somebody twice now. Let me tell you what, and then you get that first loss and the pressure's on you because you're like, oh boy, what do we do? And I can tell you, New Hampshire, Guadarrama had, I swear, I think he had 0 points and he had 34-35 game 2. And it was like, hey guys, I mean, you think somebody's going to take a loss in game 1 and not come back and fight you in game 2? You're crazy. But it's interesting to hear other schools and how they handle it. But for the most part, it's actually been fun. I don't mind it. The bus trips instead of flights, which we usually fly, we're having a bus a little bit more because of COVID. And honestly, just the fact that we're staying safe right now, it's been okay with it. It's been fun.
Well, we'll let you in, Coach, with any last words. Appreciate you coming on. You already covered the funny story with the airport and everything you were talking about with beating Virginia. So appreciate you coming on.
You know me, I got a lot of stories. So
I know. Hey, we'll have to have you come back and just have stories with Coach Dixon. But yeah,
we got plenty of sleeping in those car stories and some recruit JUCO guys. And
my God,
your old boss, Coach Hodge, got plenty of those too.
No doubt.
You know what though? I'm blessed. It's good to see you guys smile, in all honesty, because we've all been through rough times, and I think that when you can get on and see friends and see colleagues and see people having a smile involved around certainly what we do with our life with basketball, right. I think it's nice. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, and I'm actually happy you got me out of practice, getting ready to start, and I got out of a couple meetings to be able to come up and spend some time, and it was a lot of fun. So
good, man, good. Always good when you can get a break from those meetings. We know they're not going anywhere. But no,
that's like my wife says. She said, "Why don't you get a break from the meeting and shave that nasty beard?" But hey, the funny thing is, if you wear a mask, you can't see anything anyway.
Right.
That's true. Everybody
tell her.
Everybody got the new coat. Something like Shaka Smart's got his new COVID hair. That may be your good luck charm, man.
Yeah, I'm trying to hide the bald head up here a little bit. Losing it. It's all good. I do appreciate you really having me on, and it was a lot of fun. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, we'll have you back, Coach. Keep up the good work. Tell Coach we said hello, man, and be safe.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it, guys.